Good day. Boy, some of you sure dress weird. You're not British spies, are you? Are you here for a copy of the Maryland Gazette? A place to sleep and eat for a night? No? Well then let me tell you about myself. I, Jonas Green, am the great-grandson of Samuel Green. He came to Massachusetts in 1630, settled in Cambridge, and in 1649 became the second printer in America. He was printer to Massachusetts for 43 years, finally handing the positions to one of his sons in 1692. Now, about me. I am the fifth son of Deacon Timothy Green and Mary Flint. I was born in Boston on December 28, 1712, in Boston, Massachusetts, and baptized in Cotton Mather's Church in Boston on the same day. I was an apprentice to my father in New London, and later to my brother in Boston. Bored? I don't blame you. I didn't have a very exciting early life. In 1735, after I became a printer, I printed the first book of Hebrew grammar printed in America. Soon after this, I moved on to Philadelphia and found work with Benjamin Franklin and William Bradford. I lived in Philadelphia for about 2 years. Then in 1738, I married Anne Catherine Hoof in Christ Church, Philadelphia. After that, Anne and I moved to where we are now, Annapolis. Now, Anne and I had 14 children, 6 boys and 8 girls, but 8 children died in infancy. My children's names are John Green, Rebecca Clapham, Jonas Green, Jr., Catherine Green, Marie Green, William Green, and Catherine Green, Jr., Frederick Green, Deborah Green, Elizabeth Green, Jonas Green, Jr., number 2, Samuel Green, and, let me think. Oh yes, Augusta Green. Most of my early works as a printer did nothing to distinguish me from any other printer in that time period. As I got better at printing, I became known as a great, if not the best, printer in the colonies. However, I was not that versatile. I preferred to print on government or political business. In 1745, I started publishing the Maryland Gazette. Because this took up most of my time, I could not do much else. I'm not just a printer, I'm also very social. I am in the Tuesday Club, which is where I am usually seen at my social best. Some of my friends call me the poet, printer, purveyor, punster, and punchmaker of the club. In the Tuesday Club, there are many of the leading gentlemen of the province, but it was open to anyone. In the Tuesday Club, we have lots of fun. My nicknames of the Tuesday Club are Poet Laureate and Master of Ceremonies. As you can see in the hours that I'm not printing, I am a very social man. I never went into great detail about the Maryland Gazette, so let me tell you about that. The Maryland Gazette was a weekly paper that I printed for my print shop. As I said earlier, in 1745, I started publishing the Maryland Gazette. The only problem is that I am always running out of paper. I think that when my paper was most famous was when I used it to preach against the Stamp Act, but I'll tell you more about that later. That is my whole life up until now. Now, if you aren't bored out of your minds, let me tell you about the house you are standing in. This is a very old house. The only older house you'll find in Annapolis is the house owned by John Sands. My house is 112 stories high. It is about 35 feet by 50 feet in dimension. It is mostly rectangular with the exception of the addition I added. My front wall is framed, covered with shingles, and the other 3 sides are brick laid in English bond. By the looks on your faces, I'm guessing you don't know what English bond is. Have you never read a book of Georgian or Dutch colonial architecture? Anyway, English bond is when you have a row of the long-sided bricks, then a row of the short-sided bricks. That pattern repeats as high as you want the structure to go. I have 2 large brick chimneys on each side of my house. They have a window in between each chimney. My windows are double-hung 9/9 windows, which are windows where both the top and bottom parts can move, and each part is 9 squares. Some of my windows have flat arches, which are bricks laid in a bowl shape, and some have segmented arches, which are bricks laid in an arch shape. I have a gambrel roof. Oh, that is a roof that most barns have. Boy, you guys sure know nothing about architecture. And on the lower front slope, there are shingles. I have a cornice, which is the beam of wood that separates the top floor from the roof, 6 fine-hipped dormers, 3 on the rear, 2 on the east side of the elevation, and 1 on the west, which are windows that stick out from the roof. Now, the inside of my house. These are my floor plans. On the bottom floor, I have a central stair, an entrance hall, and 2 rooms on each side of the house, the front ones being bigger. The ceiling height is 8 feet and 1 inch. On my top floor, it is similar to the first floor, except for the addition of a hall chamber at the front. The ceiling is at 7 feet and 4 inches. That is all I can explain about my house. If you want more, ask my architect. I never told you about my newspaper's finest moment. Since I'm a patriot and I hate the Stamp Act, the last issue of my newspaper's header was the Maryland Gazette expiring in uncertain hopes of a resurrection to life again. In the bottom corner, where I should have put a Parliament stamp, I put the fatal stamp, which looked like a skull and crossbones. I can't do this much longer or I'd be arrested. But I hope this will make an impact on my fellow Tories to convince them to change beliefs and become a patriot. Speaking of which, I'm far behind schedule. I'm sorry that I have to leave so abruptly, but I must print more issues of my non-Stamp Act paper. Thank you for coming and have a nice day in Annapolis. Now, we all, hopefully, know that the year is 2014, not 1765, and a lot has happened between when Jonas Green left us to go back to printing and now. First of all, a month after the final issue of the Maryland Gazette expired, issues of the newspaper appeared with headlines, "The Apparition of the Maryland Gazette, which is not dead but sleepeth." On January 30th, 1766, came the Maryland Gazette reviving, and on February 20th, the Maryland Gazette revived. Finally, on March 7th, 1766, the Maryland Gazette had the title of the Maryland Gazette, which meant the newspaper was back to normal, but only until 1767. Until then, Jonas Green busied himself with his newspaper and other things to print. On April 16th, 1767, the following notice appeared in the Maryland Gazette. On Saturday evening last died at his late dwelling house, Mr. Jonas Green, for 28 years printer to this province, and 21 years printer and publisher of the Maryland Gazette. He was one of the aldermen of this city. It would be the highest indiscretion in us to attempt giving the character he justly deserved. Only we have reason to regret the loss of him in the various stations of husband, parent, master, and companion. In short, Jonas Green had died of smallpox, and Anna Catherine Hoof Green continued the paper and ran it even better than Jonas did until she died in 1775. I hope that you enjoyed my speech about Jonas Green and have a nice day in colonial downtown Annapolis.